Despite not having a first-round pick for the upcoming NBA draft, the Toronto Raptors still met with 2 lottery-bound prospects, meaning they could want to move up for a big pick in the draft. In today's video, we're going to break down 3 possible trade options for the Raptors to move into the lottery. Let's get into it. What's going on, everybody? It's Jacob here, back with Amateur Hour Sports for another Toronto Raptors YouTube video. On this channel, we're giving you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, and we're going to be doing that all throughout the offseason. So if you're new to the channel and you like what you see, make sure you are subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports. We are on a road to 10,000 subscribers after just hitting 9,000 last week. What a milestone to hit, but we want to continue to push forward with the brand. But our video today: 3 possible trade options for the Raptors to move into the lottery, because the Raptors have decided that they might want to be some players in this one. The Raptors have been known in the past for building through the draft. They're not the most attractive market as it comes to free agents, so the best way for them to get top-tier talent, and top-tier talent at especially young ages, is to go through the draft. And the Raptors, over the last 9 years, they've made the playoffs 8 times, so it's pretty difficult to get those high draft picks. So a move for the Raptors this year could be to actually trade into one of those lottery positions, a top 14 pick in the draft. And even though that may seem a little bit far-fetched, there are reports that are suggesting the Raptors have met with Dyson Daniels and Benedict Mathurin. These are players who are expected to almost certainly go in the lottery in this draft. So the Raptors may have some possible plans on moving up into one of those lottery positions, or at the very least move into the first round in some capacity, because the Raptors, of course, this year traded away that first round pick because they wanted to get that Goran Dragic salary off the book. So they traded away the first round pick as well as Goran Dragic for Thaddeus Young and what ended up being the 33rd overall pick. Now, we're not putting it past the Raptors to find a good player with the 33rd overall pick, but it becomes a lot more difficult to find a player in that situation than it would be to find them a lot earlier. And for the Raptors, who maybe, they're not exactly going to be contenders next year. We expect them to be a good team, a playoff team, but maybe we're more focused on the future, winning a championship. Trading into the lottery to find another prospect to add into such a great talent pool here to complement the core that is already in place, that could make a little bit of sense for the Raptors. So what we're going to do in this video is go through 3 possible ways in which the Raptors can make this trade. Now, we're not going to go into specifics about what the Raptors are going to trade for who, but we are going to talk about the package and the centerpiece of what the Raptors are going to have to do and what they're going to have to send out in order to make these possible trades happen. So there are 3 scenarios, and the first scenario is probably the easiest one to discuss. It's the Raptors trading away a core piece to make this happen. A lot of the times, the teams that are in the lottery are teams that really want to rebuild. They want to find the young players that they can build around for the future. But sometimes, and especially in this scenario, there are going to be teams in the lottery who want to be better next season. They want to be a playoff team right away for next season. And there's a few teams who kind of fit in that category, kind of like the Spurs, kind of like the Hornets in this situation, who maybe they want to bring in a player who's ready right now and not have to work and develop a player who's currently in the draft process. And maybe, they've just been in so many years where they have gone through the draft, it hasn't really worked out. They want to find a player that is more of a sure thing. So the Raptors would have to trade away a core piece in order to make a trade happen. And probably the most tradable person right now is Gary Trent Jr. A lot of Raptors fans think that Gary Trent Jr. should be on the way out in the offseason. Gary Trent Jr., his contract honestly is pretty good from a value standpoint. He's going to be making $18 million next season, and the season after that, he's a player option worth $18 million as well. Now, the thing is, as good as the value is there, Gary Trent Jr. is probably a player worth at least $21 million. I mean, definitely over $20 million at this point. So I find it hard to believe that Gary Trent Jr. would take that player option. So it's looking like Gary Trent Jr. is in the last year of that contract, and the Raptors risk losing him for nothing at the end of the season. So moving him now and finding a player in the draft who could help out the team for more of a long-term future than possibly Gary Trent Jr. could be a fruitful avenue for the Toronto Raptors to explore. Now, there's also the problem with Fred VanVleet's contract, because he has a player option at the end of this season, and Fred VanVleet, who was an all-star this year, it's possible he may turn that down seeking more money. The Raptors are a little bit restricted in terms of their cap space at the moment. They could certainly make these happen, but it could be more fruitful for them to explore getting a draft pick to help them for the long-term future, maybe only keep on to one of Gary Trent Jr. or Fred VanVleet. The most tradable piece at this point is Gary Trent Jr. So the Raptors, in theory, if they wanted to, could trade Gary Trent Jr. and get themselves into the draft lottery. In order for the Raptors to do this, they would have to really like somebody in the draft and really trust somebody who was in the draft to come in and replace a key member of the starting lineup here. The Raptors, if they want to do this, they must really like somebody in the lottery situation. So let's move on to the second possible avenue in which the Raptors can explore, and this is probably the most likely way the Raptors could do this, and that is trading away future picks. The Raptors right now, they have their 33rd overall pick. That's not going to attract a ton of attention in the lottery unless it's accompanied by a lot of other things, a lot of other picks. So the Raptors could take their draft picks in the future and move into the lottery this year. Now, the thought process behind this one is the Raptors, in theory, they're probably going to be a playoff team next year. That's the expectation. And the idea behind this transition phase from this year is the Raptors are going to get better as the years goes on. So maybe next year's a playoff run. Maybe the year after that, they want to be one of the higher seeds in the Eastern Conference. So in keeping this mindset, those picks would become decreasingly valuable for the Raptors because the thought is those are just going to be worse and worse picks in the first round. So the Raptors would likely have to trade away, I think, 2 first-round picks and maybe even the 33rd pick from this year in order to move into the lottery of this season. Now, again, this is going to have to factor in the fact that Masai Ujiri, Bobby Webster, anybody in the Raptors front office, they would have to decide that they really want a player in the lottery right now. Like back when Giannis got drafted, there was that phone call, the video of Masai Ujiri really desperately trying to get into the draft to pick up Giannis because that is the player he identified as a future cornerstone of the franchise. Obviously, in hindsight, that would have been a great trade, but they just couldn't make anything happen to get involved in the draft. The Raptors in this situation without a first-round pick in the draft, similar to that Giannis situation, would just have to identify somebody is there that they would really, really like to pick up and they really see a bright future for. So, if that is the case, if they see somebody in the lottery that fits the bill, fits exactly what they are looking for, then maybe trading away a couple of future first-round picks in order to make this one happen, right? Where we're trying to get into the next level of the rebuild, the next level of the transition phase. I don't know if we were in a full-blown rebuild here because, you know, our transition season, we were the 5th seed in the Eastern Conference, but nonetheless, that was the start of the future for the Raptors. So as we're getting into that future phase, can we find another piece to really, really lock this core down? And if this player is going to help us do all these things, then maybe it would be worth it to trade away some future picks in order to make this happen. Now, the third way the Raptors could do this, probably the most unlikely way to make it happen, but not an impossible way to make this happen. This would be more for a lower pick in the lottery, and based on the people they were talking to in Dyson Daniels and Benedict Mathurin, they could be moving down into the 10 to 14 range in the lottery. So the Raptors, in this scenario, would basically be giving a goodie bag. It wouldn't necessarily be one specific piece they're going to trade around, but it could be just a bunch of different aspects, a bunch of different players within the team. So maybe you give away a young player. Maybe you give away Malachi Flynn, Chris Boucher, maybe one pick in the future, a first-round pick for the future. Just a bunch of small things that accumulate together to get to a value in which maybe a team in the lottery just doesn't want to make that selection, just doesn't think there's a lot of value in the pick they're going to have. So why not bring in some more depth? Why not bring in a future pick where you focus on who you're going to draft when you get to that point? Maybe it won't be as good of a pick as this year, but that's what you're trading away for. That's what you're getting all those extra pieces for. This seems a little bit unlikely because just think about the Raptors if they were in a lottery spot. If we were going to trade away a lottery pick, you would want a ton of value in making it happen. So likely you wouldn't be interested in a trade like this. But Masai Ujiri could be asking around and could just figure out a team that just doesn't really want to make that selection and maybe would want to add in a little bit more depth to their team in order to make a possible trade happen. So it's possible for this to happen, but it's much more likely for the Raptors to go with one of the first two options. They would want to deal with option number 3, but making that trade happen just seems a little bit too difficult. So let's assess how it would work. Would it be good for the Raptors to make any of these trades? So option number 3 seems pretty viable. If we could do that, I think a lot of Raptors fans, I think most, if not all, would want to make that trade away a goodie bag type of thing for a lottery pick. You give away a few players, give away a future first round pick to go into the lottery this year to help with the transition. That makes a lot of sense. As it comes to trading away Gary Trent Jr. to make this happen, I think we have to remember how young Gary Trent Jr. is. And if you're going to make a pick in the draft for a player who is probably like 19, 20, 21 years old, is that player going to be as good as Gary Trent Jr. was at that age? Because I think for a lot of the people in this draft, that's probably not the case. would you really want to make that trade and trade away Gary Trent Jr., who, you still have a great opportunity to resign? He has spoken about how much he likes playing in Toronto, how much he likes playing in the Eastern Conference, and with the possibility of still bringing him back, like, that could be better for the Raptors than actually going for a draft pick. And a lot of people like myself think that, it is smart to build around Siakam and Fred VanVleet for the now, because Scottie Barnes is going to be coming up for the future. That's your future cornerstone piece. You don't need to go find another cornerstone piece. You have them for the now, and you have it for the future. As it comes to trading away future picks, those are going to be the picks that really help supplement the current core with the team. When the Raptors won the championship in 2019, yeah, there were the top heavy pieces like Kawhi Leonard, like Kyle Lowry, making a ton of money. But also coupled with that, you had two essential pieces to that team, Siakam and VanVleet, on rookie contracts. If OG Anunoby was healthy, he would have been another one on a rookie contract, super important. Norman Powell, another player on a rookie contract, super important to the team. So these types of players, the rookies that really fill out the rest of your roster on very cheap contracts, that is one of the most essential ways to win a championship, and I've spoken about it before. Rookie contracts win championships. Difficult thing to consider, but we're going to need those picks in the future to really complement the core that we have, especially as we get to the future. Maybe a lot of the core right now becomes too expensive. We can't afford them all. We're going to need those extra pieces. So keeping those picks for the future makes a lot of sense. And the final thing I want to discuss is 2022 draft class. Right now we're looking at it, it's not like the 21 draft class. This draft class is not as loaded. There is not a huge inclination for me to really go all out to get a pick here. The Raptors would have to decide that they really want a player in this draft, as I mentioned earlier. And based on the people available, I just don't really see that here. So in my opinion, the Raptors, we understood what we were doing when we made that trade for Thaddeus Young. We understood we were moving out of the first round. I think we should just accept that. Try to find a really good player at 33rd overall. Maybe move up a little bit if you find another guy you really like. But ultimately, I'm happy with what we have. I don't think we should make this trade. So what do you guys make of this video? Should the Raptors move up into a lottery pick, or should we just keep what we have and accept our fate as the 33rd overall pick? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it for me for today. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please drop a like on the video if you did enjoy. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. Also lets me know what type of video you want to see on Amateur Hour Sports through the offseason. And make sure if you're new to the channel, you are subscribed to Amateur Hour Sports. We're on a road to 10,000 subscribers, 5 figures. What a milestone that would be to hit. We are just getting started on that road, but hey, we're going to get there one day, and we're going to do it together on Amateur Hour Sports. We'll see you next time for another video.